if you remember back, oh, maybe about 5 years ago, I did a whole video series on making the solar gate, and I think maybe in, I can't remember, maybe part 4 or something, I showed you, in amongst fitting the solar gate to the post and the pivot, I fitted the, I showed you the old charcoal kiln, which we've still got it, but it's a bit of a pain in the neck. You put 8 barrow loads of firewood in, and if you're lucky you'll get 5 barrow loads of charcoal out, or maybe even less, depending upon all sorts of variables. So I thought, let's build a retort, or in the same words, a gasifier to make charcoal. Now you might think this is a bit weird, but it's not. Anyway, it seems like one of these large gas cylinders, LPG cylinders, which I found in the woods about a year ago when I was doing some marking, I thought, I know what that is. It's part of a gasifier and an oil drum, and I think the two will work quite well. I think we need to mark out a hole here, and let's just zoom in. So what we need to do is mark a hole, a circle here where we cut out this hole, and we'll need an identical hole in the bottom. So I think the first thing to do is to put a datum line, and I'll do it with this level, and that looks about right. So then if I stick this on its side, this drum on its side, I can then mark down either end, and using the level, and know that they're roughly in the right orientation. Then put a mark on here and there, diametrically opposite, so I can line this up with the line on the ends of the drum, and then cut it out with a little angle grinder. With a bit of fiddling, we can actually get the bottom half of the cylinder, i.e. not this bit, the other bit, to sit inside here. I think that's a start. So that's the drum wedged in place, and now this needs to be, this level needs to be upright. That'll do. And then I'll just do the other end. So that's lined up. I think we'll need, well, half of that line to remain. I'll just mark the other end. Right, let's give it a go, see what happens. That is heavier than that. So, and we want, I think we want the bungs at the bottom. They said doing it this way, I can't see what I'm doing. So that won't work. I want a fairly tight joint there. Doesn't matter if it leaks a bit, but if it's fairly tight, I can weld it together. Not quite. Needs a bit of work. Okay, let's get a crayon. We're just on wobbly cam. As you can see, we've got the tube through, but it's just a bit tight in places. Not much, as you see here. So a little bit of grinding. I mean, I could belt that on then, but then if I want to get that off, it might be mighty difficult. So another 5 minutes just messing and it'll be right. I want to keep this gap here the same, so I'm actually going to grind a bit off this side, because that side is where the chimney is going to be. So if you imagine, the gases are going to come round here from the firebox and up through the chimney, so we don't want to make this too restrictive. Enough of wobbly cam. Right, we're just about there. I think the whole thing is getting a bit wider, so I need to take a bit more out still. Although that's pretty nice and tight. Just mark her out with a crayon. There's a bit that's tight. And so it continues. Right, we're just looking at the door frame of this. We're on wobbly cam because I can't really work out how to format this frame. Anyway, so basically we've got some about 40mm angle there. That's the top, and so that just lines up with the edge of the gas cylinder. That's fine. Coming round the side, we've got about the same. Okay. Now, in the corners, we're going to have these gaps here, so we'll have to fill those in. But the discussion in my head is, do we put this one this way, or actually, do we need to have this exposed so that we can sweep it out like that? So therefore that's like that. But then I'm thinking about a stoker for the firebox. So it's a bit of a tricky one. I'm just going to put that back like that. I think actually, just lift the camera up a bit, we're going to have a bit of a firebox on the bottom of here, and I've got something that might very well do the job, and then we can have half of the Stoker door up there like that, so this door here won't interfere with the Stoker door, otherwise it'll all be a bit tight. So there we go. I think I can't work it out, but does it really matter? Yeah, I think we'll have this the other way round, like that, and we'll settle it down a bit, and then on these corners here, when this is welded together, I'm going to sit it on a flat piece of board and weld it together. Then these bits here, these squares, will be cut out, and the door will be made just the same as I showed in the how to build a wood stove from bits found in the nettles, and there's a 2-part playlist on that, but somewhere in there I show how to make the door frame and the door, and I will put the link up just here, just so that's further reference. The other thing is, on some of my older videos I've now started putting a link to the playlist on the first 2 or 3 videos of a playlist, just so that people can see the whole lot, especially the Proven turbine repair, which is about 5 videos long. I'm not sure how the playlist system works. I suspect people are missing some of them. Anyway, I'm going to crack on with this and we'll see what happens. Here we go. There's the frame in place. Welded at all 4 points, top, bottom and sides, and we've got to fill these corners in. Let me just put you on the stand. So we get a bit of flat and probably put it like that and just mark there and mark round there. Just grind the curve in that and cut this to size and then weld it in there, and that'll do. Welding between this gas cylinder and the oil drum was a bit tricky, and I had to use a sort of spot welding technique. Otherwise, because the differences in the size, the thickness of the material, it would burn through on the oil drum. So just zzz, zzz. Bit boring, but we got there in the end. But we fill these corners in and then I can make the door. Right, this is take 2, because when I was editing the last bit of video, A, we got some wind noise, and B, there was an Egypt in a private plane whizzing about, and you could it just interfered with everything. Anyway, so where were we? Yeah. Now then, imagine these, which are 50 by 25, 2x1 box section. They're the legs. Okay, this is the bottom, that's the top. So then we're going to make the door frame, and the reason for thinking about these legs now will become apparent in a minute. So we've got this 30mm angle iron, and it's about 5mm thick. It's quite heavy duty stuff. That's the door frame. This is the frame of the door. Okay, now that's buttered up against there for the moment, but it would actually be back here a bit, but it tips, so we'll just leave it like that. And you notice these extend out here, so this would be we'd have another one of these like that. Yeah, yeah. So that's the top and bottom, and then we'd have two side pieces, and of course the side piece would have that bit cut out, so that this side piece goes in that and fills this hole here, that hole there, and we'll just put it the other way around so that piece disappears, and so that can flow through and fill in that hole. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So then we'll have a square frame like that with these bits sticking out. These can then be part of the hinges, and we'll drill a hole there and there in line, and then we'll have the other piece of the hinge coming from there up there. Now on this one we might have to carve a piece of that out the way, just so the hinge works correctly. The idea being, if you have a hinge like that, it doesn't come together very square, it's like a taper. Whereas if you get the pivot further back, you can get the door coming on not quite square, but of a more square trajectory. And so there's that, and then there's a piece of steel on the top. As I said, I put a link earlier on to the previous video showing the design of a door, and just somewhere, here it is, I've taken off the door off the workshop stove. Now on this one I've just added the pieces for the hinge, but I figure I'm going to try and do it out of the one piece to make it look neater. Not that it really matters. This way means you've got more adjustment before you actually weld it all up. And inside, what we'll do, inside of that new frame, we'll put a piece of flat like this. And now we've got a jack door creating a nuisance. Oi! Thank you! Right, and then as you see, I put some insulation in here which creates the door seal. So we create a slot and we put insulation in there. And this actually, because it's white, this is the stuff that's out of some storage heaters. So there you go. So there you get the idea. Clonk. There you go, you get the idea. Okay, that's enough of that. So that's why we need to think about these legs, because that's where we will attach the pivot point. Now then, we're talking about having a firebox here, and in my opinion there's not enough room for a firebox and everything. It'll be a bit fiddly, so we need to extend down here a bit. Quite how much I'm not sure, but we'll work that out. This is all the design stage, just thinking it through, putting things together. I've been looking at this, well, the last week or so. I've had bits of work, some mowing, all sorts of things going on, this, that and the other, and so all I've been doing is walking past this and shuffling bits of metal around and thinking, and then going away again, because you can't rush it. Okay, this is the bottom, that's the top. So as I said, I think we need a firebox there, and because this is take two, we've already got it drawn out. So we've got this steel box, and previously it was a battery box that I'd put on the Kubota, just because the original battery compartment is so small and piddly, and you have to have a very expensive battery for it. So we had redesigned it. Anyway, if you imagine that goes there, and we cut this piece out so this slots in, and we want to slot it in fairly tight. So then we can maybe put a scissor jack in there and push it out against the two cut edges so we can get a good weld. Now I'm thinking it needs to go in a bit, so let's drop it in a couple of inches and see what it looks like, because I think as a firebox that's probably a little bit big. Yeah, we'll work that out as we go along. So you've got to imagine this is the bottom. So we'll have a cut area that comes up here like that to complete this rectangular hole, and that face there wants to be flush with this face here, so that will need to go back a bit. Yeah, so and then we can have a light angle iron frame that's welded on here, flows through there. It's probably even bolted on there because you'll be able to get to it, not that way but through this way. So then, and I'm going to flip this up now over, so that's the bottom. There's a lip there, so we can have a false steel floor, and we could probably put some sand in there or something to protect the bottom, and some sides, just odd bits of steel, fairly thick stuff if I can find it, in amongst the pile of miscellaneous assorted. So you imagine you've got a fire in there and the heat is coming up through this gap and going round there like that, and it's cooking the timber that's in this partially sealed container. And it's partially sealed because the far end has got an outlet pipe, and the outlet pipe comes round and in the end comes through the back of the firebox fairly high up, and he's blanked off. It's got holes in the side, and the gas that's evolved from heating the charge, the timber in the charge, will hopefully then burn there. I've never done this before. I've seen retort kilns working, but I've never operated one. So we're sort of making it up as we go along, which for me is not that difficult. So we'll have a fire here, and when the gas starts to come out, this gas will light, and I suspect we'll probably have to keep a small fire going there all the time. We'll work that one out. And I do know that on that gas pipe you need to have a sump pipe to let tars and moisture and stuff out, otherwise it just blocks the gas jet. So that will probably do. So this is there, this is down a bit to say there, the square hole comes around there, the square frame with a door on it and an air vent in it. So I think that's the end of part one. Yeah, hopefully I've made quite a bit of sense. These projects just take a while, you can't rush them, they just sort of build slowly, and you go so far and then you have to stop, and it might be 3, 4, 5 days before I get on with the next bit. And it's just because it's like time and weather and going to work and doing this and that, but also you need to have plenty of time just to think it through. Yeah, if you just charge ahead with a project, you end up going back on yourself all the time, and maybe ruining it because you didn't think it through quite so well. So just 2 or 3 days just to muse on stuff when you're not quite sure, and offer stuff up and cut a bit and fit it there and all that sort of thing. Anyway, again, it's this whole expectation thing. Yeah? If I don't expect to be finished in a week, then I'm not disappointed because there's no expectation. So we'll catch up with you soon.